And this is the last event or a closure event of the pavilion, and I'm very, very happy that I have with me a very good friend, Esther de Langen, that now is the head of cabinet of our commissioner for climate change. And he was commissioner and is going to continue commissioner. It was reconfirmed yesterday. I think all the
next week.
yeah, but all the college was finalized yesterday, so we can relax. And so it's a pleasure for me to have Esther and to close what has been a fantastic 2 weeks. We had 55 events, many visitors. It was considered by the presidents of the COP the most innovative and dynamic pavilion, special with, I have to say, many events, but Pastéis de Nata and the Nazaré Wave. We had presidents of banks, ministers, ambassadors. Everyone was doing the surf of the big wave of Nazaré. So I'm very happy that went so well. That was an attraction for everyone to a place that we could consider home, just to meet friends, and to close all these activities to have Esther de Langen with us. So Esther, can you address us?
Thank you very much, Maria. I hope the sound is fine. And let me first of all congratulate Minister Carvalho for her leadership when it comes to fighting climate change in Portugal, in Europe, and as we are trying to do here at COP, also globally. We have to be very clear about that. We in Europe, we have a historic responsibility, that is very, very sure. At the same time, we're only 6% of global emissions. So we have to make sure the other 94 also contribute, and this is what we try to do here at COP. Through our leadership, we lead by example in Europe, but deliberately bringing others along. 55 events, you said, Maria, you had in this pavilion. The next commission, you mentioned the next commission, in the field of climate will have to do several things, right? First of all, we will have to make sure that we implement our strategy that we voted, that you helped shape in the European Parliament when it comes to our 2030 target. 55% less emissions in 2030 is our European goal. The legislation that is linked to that is called Fit for 55. Well, you were already Fit for 55 because you had 55 events here in the Portuguese pavilion. I think that is a huge success. If I look to the right of me, I have to tell you, your coffee machine looks a lot more impressive than the coffee machine that we have in the European offices backstage. But Fit for 55, I mean, that will be quite a big challenge. Shaping and implementing the legislation that we voted in the last period in the European Parliament, while at the same time, as also the Draghi report tells us to do, safeguarding our competitiveness in Europe and making sure that our industries that are in a transition are protected, for example, against carbon leakage. So that is a challenge. We also know our long-term challenge, which is the 2050 goal, net climate neutrality, so net zero emissions in 2050. And what will be the big discussion then in the Commission that will indeed be hopefully, fingers crossed, voted next week when the European Parliament meets in Strasbourg. So all the committees in the European Parliament gave a positive assessment of the candidates, the commissioners to be, but as Maria knows very, very, very well, nothing is final until the European Parliament votes on it, and that will indeed happen next week. So after that vote, what will be the big challenge for Climate Commissioner Hoekstra? putting into implementation the legislation we already have for 2030, knowing that we want to be climate neutral in 2050, and then setting an intermediate goal for 2040. Already this Commission has advised, on the basis of scientific advice, that the target we would recommend as a European Commission would be a reduction of net 90% in 2040. Of course, that has to be based on a legal proposal that we will hopefully make soon, early in the mandate, to change our climate law. The climate law, by the way, that sets this target already for 2030. It sets the target for 2050, and which, if I remember correctly, was actually finalized on the Portuguese presidency. So it's a bit of a Portuguese law as well. What we will do is we will have a targeted amendment in this climate law. Sounds very easy, right? You just put in there 90% net 2040. It will be more complicated and bumpy than I say now, because for sure there will be a lively political debate both in the European Parliament and in Council. But of course I want to also reassure the politicians that will be debating this 90% target in 2040. I want to reassure them in the sense that we don't do that in a vacuum. It's very easy to put forward a target. It's much more complicated to have the discussion, how are we going to do that? Together with our member states, together with our industries. And there we will have a proposal for a clean industrial deal. A clean industrial deal that will look into these surrounding elements, these enabling conditions that we will also have to meet in order for this transition to be possible. And one thing we will need to look at for sure, and Maria, you know much more about this than me, is energy prices. How do we make sure the markets function and we keep them low? How do we make sure that we have sufficient renewable energies, that we lower our energy dependence where it still exists? We already did a lot of work on that, by the way, in the previous mandate. Energy prices, clean industry, what do we need in terms of enabling conditions there? Raw materials, how do we lower our dependence there? And I can go on and on, but let me stop there. I think this clean industrial deal will come in the first 100 days of the mandate of the new European Commission. So after the vote next week, no rest for the wicked, to work immediately to make sure that the enabling conditions are there to get to this 2040 target. Maybe this as a means of an introduction, Maria, as to what the Commissioner will have on his plate when he gets back to Brussels. And maybe one addition, you said he will have the same portfolio, which is true, climate action and clean growth, but there's one addition to his portfolio, and that is taxation. And some people said, what a weird combination. I would say, what a very logical combination, because a lot of the discussions will be about how can we, at national level, but also with coordination at European level, green our taxation systems, make sure that our green industry is taxed, our green energy is taxed less than our polluting energy sources. There's already a proposal for that on the table. Just needs to be agreed in Council, lots of work still ahead of us. But I would say it's a logical combination, also because it includes the work on CBAM. The CBAM, the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, that was one of the big innovations in the previous mandate, and a very important one, I think, because what it does is to say, well, if we ask more from our industry that is in a difficult transition in terms of climate ambition through our ETS system in Europe, if we ask more, we should also help level the playing field if it's unfair. And this is where CBAM comes in. It's not a measure directed against third countries, but it's a measure that says, if you have a carbon pricing mechanism like we do, there's no problem. But if you don't, and we would rather you have it, but if you don't, it's only fair to have this mechanism in place so that the playing field is level. I've been talking too much, but I thought it was important to give you an overview of where we're at, what we will be doing in the next mandate, and why it's important that we're here, because we need to bring along the 94% of emissions that are not European, Maria.
Thank you very much, Esther. I just want to tell you that we are completely in line with the work that you are doing in the Commission. As we have finished now our National Plan of Energy and Climate Change, where we have a quite ambitious program with 51% of renewables of the total energy. And we have the neutrality. We have anticipated 5 years, so 2045. So we have ambitions on that. We also have we have performed critical raw materials strategy that will be presented publicly present in the beginning of December. Is a common work between us and the Minister of Economy, because it will be crucial that we have the potential and the capacity, but we need to have very clear rules for these projects to be accepted by the population in terms of raw materials. And we are doing a big effort to simplify the rules for the licensing, for larger projects, but also for small projects. We have done legislation that allows the small photovoltaic to be very easy, just to buy in a certificate company and to install it without necessary to have extra licensing. And also the energy communities, small projects, not only the big projects, but to involve people. And that is the line that we are following. We also have done a new statute for the electro-intensive industry to help to lower the price of electricity for companies like glass, ceramics, cement, and the big users of energy, because they have suffered a lot in the last 2-3 years with the prices of electricity. And we are applying the internal market, electricity market that I know all the details. So we hope that we are preparing the country for getting Fit for 55, like the pavilion. And I know that you have a busy schedule, and I really want to thank you for getting time for the difficult situation. So I just pass to you and after I will finalize.
Thank you so much. I want to mention one more thing, and that is adaptation. And there I think Portugal can be of huge help also to the European Commission. I mean, we have seen all through Europe, unfortunately, in the last years, ever more frequent, and I know Portugal was not spared its share of extreme weather events. We've seen them all through Europe. But you as a country have taken the lead in doing the assessment of these impacts that climate change will have on the country. And I want to congratulate you on that leadership. I think it's extremely important. The European Commission will also be coming forward with a climate adaptation plan, where I think really we can learn from these examples, like in Portugal, bring together all the good examples to make sure that sometimes Europe is simple, right? It's learning from each other. We're all in the same boat when it comes to adaptation, extreme weather events. We can learn from each other. together, and out of that, make an addition that makes us stronger than we are on our own. So this adaptation strategy, I think, will take inspiration from Portugal and from other countries. I'm sure we will work together like we did in the Parliament. We can work together, also you now in Portugal and me in the Commission. And maybe one final thing on the energy communities. The Commission might seem very far away in Brussels, and Parliament, the European Parliament, might seem very far away from Brussels. But when we make Europe and when we shape the global community that fights climate change, the best way to shape it is also to build on initiatives that are there on the ground. So I always like to hear these examples about, even if they're small, energy communities that are built from the bottom up. I think that is extremely important. So I go, yes, to big negotiations, and we're not there yet, but I take inspiration for the big negotiations from these examples from the member states. Maria, it's been a pleasure, even though it was short, and Celia is already there to take me away, I'm afraid. Without coffee and without pastel de nata, which is like really, really not good when you're in the Portuguese pavilion. I'll let you wrap up. We will be in touch. Thank you for your warm welcome here in Portugal. Thank you.
So thank you, Esther. Thank you and good luck with the negotiations. Thank you. Now, I think that's all Portuguese, no? No. I will speak in English. So thank you very much for being here with us during 2 weeks, all the events, and being so fantastic, enthusiastic about everything. And I hope to see you all next year, if not before, in Brazil, in Blind COP30. So thank you very much. You want to ask a question?
I do a lot of work in Portugal, in supporting Portugal. My name is Gail Davis, and I'm at ECOSOC at the UN as an NGO, but I also support the ambassadors and heads of state. And I've been going through Portugal to support Portugal in achieving the SDGs, using your women fishermen from Peniche.
Yeah, Peniche.
Yes, and also Ericeira, and what's possible in Portugal, because I believe Portugal is a leading country in understanding oceans. Understanding oceans. Okay?
Yes.
So I have a question to you. How can the citizens of your country support you with the work that you're doing, okay? And how can the artists of your country or creative professionals support you, artists and creative professionals, support you with getting the message out that you're trying to create for the work you're doing in your country?
It's very nice. Thank you very much for your question. You have a lot of questions in a short statement. First, oceans and women and fishermen is fantastic. We are an ocean nation, and we are fighting that oceans are also play also a very important role here in the negotiations. In the biodiversity negotiations, but also here, oceans are important. And in my opinion, still in the climate negotiations, ocean doesn't have the role that it should have. So we need to continue to push the role of oceans in this COP. That is the first thing. Second, climate change and energy transition will be only happening if we have the involvement of people. So we need people to be part of it. And it's the reason that, for example, these small projects on the energy communities are so important, because if you are consuming your energy, you feel part of the transition. If you put a small photovoltaic panel in your house or in your garden, you are part of the movement. And if we do not manage to have everyone on board, we will not be successful. It's a bit like the digital transition. The digital transition arrived to everyone. The energy transition still didn't arrive to everyone. It's still too technical and very much based on large projects, and we need to change that. It should be much more easier to use, and small projects that people can be involved and can be part and can discuss. We need to have just to go to the shop, buy, install in your house, in your office, in your garden. That is the, the transition that it's required. Of course, at the same time, we need to manage the large projects and the large energy production, but in parallel, we need this for the people. And artists can be very important in passing the message, both in climate change, but also in the energy transition, that they are linked, that the involvement of population, the getting together, the community. We are putting now to in the financed by European funds a program on sustainable neighborhoods, bairros sustentáveis. For us, it's a very important program because we'll put people together discussing the solutions for their neighborhoods and getting the money. And we are not going to involve not especially the mayor or no. It can be the association of the people on that neighborhood that get together, apply, and install what they think that is good for their for their living in terms of energy and environment.
Could
So
artists
this is
also work with the
yes,
Portuguese scientists?
Of course, of course. And artists are very important to pass the message. So thank you for your work. Thank you very much. I invite you all for the getting together that we have in the end of the afternoon, that is now, to taste our pastéis de nata and to drink something together. So thank you.